Jungkook sat across from Serafina Sierra Caldwell, tapping his pen lightly against the table as he reviewed her resume. She was experienced, professional, and had the qualities Taehyung needed in his personal staff. He glanced up. You know how to handle private matters? Sierra nodded. Yes, I understand the importance of trust and confidentiality. Jungkook watched her carefully. This job means you'll be close to Taehyung's personal life. You need to know your boundaries, what's private, what's public, and how to respect his space. Sierra held his gaze, her posture unwavering. I understand. My role is to assist, not intrude. Jungkook considered her words before asking, have you worked with someone of Taehyung's status before? She nodded slightly. Yes, CEOs, executives, people who value efficiency and trust. And why this job specifically? He asked, leaning forward. Sierra hesitated for a fraction of a second before replying, because I work best in environments where loyalty matters, and I believe in doing my job without distractions. Jungkook studied her for a moment before speaking again. Do you know much about Taehyung? Only what's relevant to the role, she answered simply. Not curious? She gave a small smile. I prefer to learn about a person through their expectations, not headlines. Jungkook sat back, analyzing her responses. She was careful, thoughtful, not overstepping, yet confident in her abilities. You have no concerns working for him? He asked finally. Sierra met his gaze evenly. No, only the expectation to meet his standards. Jungkook nodded, satisfied. She was exactly what Taehyung needed. Jungkook glanced at the neatly stacked papers in front of him, giving them one final look before setting them aside. He met Sierra's steady gaze, nodding in approval. All right, Serafina, he said, his tone firm but composed. My name is Jeon Jungkook, someone you'll need to keep in mind as you work with Taehyung. Sierra acknowledged his words with a slight nod, understanding the weight behind them. I'll refer you to Taehyung, Jungkook continued, standing up. The rest will be mailed to you. Expect details soon. With that, the decision was made. Sierra was in, and whether she realized it or not, she had just stepped into a world where trust wasn't just expected, it was everything. As Jungkook stepped out of the office building, the evening air was cool against his skin. He loosened his tie slightly, slipping into his car before dialing Ryan's number. Get Ryan, he muttered under his breath, impatiently waiting for the call to connect. After a few rings, Ryan picked up. Free to talk? Jungkook asked without preamble. Ryan chuckled. For you always. What's up? I'm throwing a party for Tani at home. A surprise? Jungkook said, already checking the time as he drove. You in? Obviously. Who else is coming? Everyone who matters. Ryan grinned on the other end. You really don't mess around, do you? We don't have time to, Jungkook replied. Be there early. We need everything ready before he gets home. Later that evening, Taehyung drove home, one hand loosely gripping the wheel, the other fumbling for his phone. A crease formed between his brows as he murmured to himself. Why didn't he say anything before leaving? He had been caught up in work too, but Jungkook never left without a word. Tae pressed his contact, the phone ringing once, twice no answer. His grip on the steering wheel tightened as he drove faster, unease creeping in. Jungkook always picked up. When he finally reached home, he rang the bell, the door swung open, and before Tae could register anything, pop! Cold champagne sprayed all over him, soaking his expensive suit. Tae blinked, stunned, as laughter erupted from the group of friends crowded in the entryway. Surprise! Ryan shouted, holding the champagne bottle like a trophy. CEO Taehyung, Nathaniel, welcome home. Tae let out a laugh, shaking his head as he wiped champagne off his face. You guys are insane. Ryan pulled him into a tight hug, grinning ear to ear. Insane for you, buddy. We couldn't miss this moment. One by one, Tae's friends surrounded him, their voices overlapping in a chaotic mix of congratulations and teasing. Look at you, Mr. CEO. Don't forget us little people now. Man, you're drenched. That suit's ruined. Tae laughed harder, hugging each of them in turn. his heart swelling with happiness. The energy was infectious, wild, loud, and full of love. But even amidst the chaos, Tae's eyes kept darting around the room, searching. "Where's Jungkook?" he asked Ryan, trying to sound casual. Ryan smirked. "He's around. Don't worry, he didn't ditch your party." The group moved to the backyard, where the barbecue was already in full swing. Flames crackled beneath skewers of meat, the scent of grilled food filling the air. Excusing himself, Tae slipped into the kitchen. There, he found Jungkook calm and composed as always, plating food with precision. Across from him stood Alan, leaning casually against the counter. "I was out of line," Alan said, his tone softer than usual. "That day, I shouldn't have said what I did." Jungkook glanced at him, his expression neutral. "And I shouldn't have punched you." Alan chuckled. "Fair enough." Tae stepped into the room, his voice cutting through the quiet. "What's going on here?" Alan turned first, flashing a mischievous grin. "You're home. Congratulations, buddy." Then, with a playful wink, he added, "I was flirting with your boyfriend. Problem?" Tae raised an eyebrow, unimpressed, while Jungkook continued plating food as if nothing had happened. Alan winked again before slipping past Tae, heading back to the group outside. Tae stepped closer, his voice dipping into something softer, more intimate. Was he flirting, Rue? Jungkook didn't glance up, his fingers steady as he plated food. "People don't flirt with me, not because they don't want to, but because I don't give them the chance." Tae chuckled, crossing his arms as he leaned against the counter. "Yet, I didn't hesitate, and you didn't stop me." Jungkook finally met Tae's gaze, his eyes dark with a knowing glint. "You flirted because I let you, or maybe because those eyes were impossible to ignore, and I wanted them fixed on me, only me." Tae's breath hitched for just a second before he tilted his head, feigning nonchalance. "And why the exception?" Tae stepped closer, lowering his voice just enough to make Jungkook's attention linger. "Was Taehyung Nathaniel an exception?" Jungkook exhaled slowly, fingers skimming the rim of the wine glass before pouring. "Those eyes, they didn't just look, they anchored. And for the first time, I didn't mind being the thing someone wanted to hold on to." Tae edged forward just slightly, a teasing glint in his eyes, the heat of the moment settling between them. "So, you weren't just tolerating it, you enjoyed it?" Jungkook lifted the glass toward Tae, his fingers brushing over his as he handed it over. "And if I did," he murmured, tone teasing, daring. Tae accepted the glass, his gaze lingering on Jungkook over the rim as he took a slow sip. He set it down, leaning slightly forward, voice dipping just enough to challenge. "Then I guess I should never stop." Jungkook leaned back against the counter, amusement dancing in his gaze. "I never said I wanted you to." Jungkook exhaled, his lips barely curving into a smirk. "Because, for the first time, someone's attention felt like something I wanted to keep, something I didn't mind indulging in." Tae took another slow step forward, their space narrowing, tension thick between them. "So the ever-composed Jeon Jungkook actually wanted me to flirt." Jungkook reached for the wine bottle, pouring it effortlessly into a glass. His voice was quieter now, edged with something unspoken. "Would it disappoint you if I said yes?" Tae chuckled, shaking his head. "It would confirm everything I suspected." "I guess that means I should keep doing it," he murmured, lips barely parting from the rim of the glass. Jungkook smirked, leaning against the counter. "You already are." The storm outside did little to mask the tension in Tae's voice as he stepped away, his drenched blazer sliding off his shoulders in one swift motion. "Ignoring my calls, arranging some grand party. Are you planning to make me beg for your attention now?" Jungkook's fingers curled slightly around the counter, stomach tightening as he watched Tae shrug off his drenched blazer. The fabric slid off his shoulders effortlessly, revealing the crisp shirt beneath, already slightly unbuttoned. "You're acting like I abandoned you for weeks. I was literally making sure you'd have fun tonight," Jungkook murmured, eyes flickering as Tae loosened his tie, slowly pulling it free. He hummed, rolling up his sleeves, each movement unhurried, almost deliberate. Jungkook's gaze followed the motion, unable to look away. Tae's hands paused, his gaze lifting sharp and unwavering. And did you consider that maybe I don't need them for fun, that maybe, just maybe, I only wanted you? Jungkook swallowed, pressing his palms against the cool surface of the counter. I thought you'd enjoy having your friends around. Tae exhaled, shaking his head slightly. Sure, it's fantastic to have them, but Rue is going to get punished tonight. Jungkook's breath hitched for just a second. His eyes lifted, searching Tae's, his voice almost careful. For what? Tae stepped forward, crowding just a little closer. Ignoring my calls, isn't that enough reason? Jungkook breathed out a laugh, barely above a whisper. Then punish me. Tae took a step forward, something dark and promising flickering in his gaze. Jungkook braced himself, but before anything could unfold, Ryan's voice rang out, cutting through the charged silence. Guys, barbecue's ready. Did I spoil the romance? Tae exhaled sharply, stepping back with evident reluctance. Totally, he muttered. Jungkook chuckled as he grabbed the tray. The makguksu is ready, he announced, following Ryan out. Tae narrowed his eyes. You made makguksu for them. What's that now? The moment they all settled, plates full, reality hit. The spicy Korean noodles were no joke. Tears pricked at their eyes, curses flying through the air as some struggled to handle the heat. This is brutal, one of the boys wheezed, grabbing for his drink. I think my soul just left my body, another groaned. Through the chaos, Tae stood, tapping his glass lightly. The laughter died down as all eyes turned to him. I have an announcement, Tae said, the corners of his lips lifting. He glanced at Jungkook briefly, something warm in his gaze. We're getting married soon. Silence stretched, then erupted into cheers. The boys were quick to take charge. Cheers, shouting, teasing remarks bouncing across the table. Finally, we need to celebrate this properly. Ryan grinned, leaning forward. All right, 2 days bachelor party, but there's a rule. Jungkook, you're not meeting Tae until the wedding day. No calls, no seeing each other, strictly apart. Jungkook hesitated before nodding. Tae scoffed, shaking his head. That's ridiculous. I'm not leaving Rue. Jungkook leaned back slightly, smirking. They're right, Tae. Tae narrowed his eyes at him, unimpressed. The boys clapped, sealing the deal before he could argue further. Final decision. Drinks flowed, voices rising in old songs, the atmosphere wild with nostalgia. Then came the dancing. Tae, who had definitely had too much to drink, was in his element. Sassy, dramatic, utterly clingy, he latched onto Jungkook, pulling him toward the crowd. Laughter and music swelled inside the house, their friends growing louder, drinks flowing freely as the party stretched into the night. Jungkook was smiling, caught in the chaos, when he felt Tae's gaze steady, lingering. He turned, catching the quiet need in Tae's eyes. A silent conversation passed between them, no words required. A moment later, Jungkook reached for the keys. Tae didn't say anything, just nodded. They slipped away unnoticed, stepping into the cool night air, the distant hum of the city beyond the walls of their home. The car door shut softly, and as Jungkook pulled onto the empty road, the energy of the party faded, replaced by the rhythmic sound of the tires on asphalt, the soft rustle of wind slipping through the open windows. Tae exhaled, resting his arm against the window frame, eyes on the passing streetlights. Needed to breathe, he murmured. Jungkook nodded, fingers strumming lightly against the steering wheel. I know, you do too much for everyone else, Tae said suddenly, voice quiet but sure. Sometimes I wonder if you even realize it. Jungkook glanced at him, something stirring in his chest. I just want you to be happy. Tae's lips curved slightly, something his expression. I am, but happiness doesn't have to be loud. Jungkook swallowed, his grip tightening momentarily on the wheel. Then let's stay like this for a while. Tae's fingers brushed against the back of Jungkook's hand, brief but deliberate, before settling back against his thigh. The warmth lingered. The road stretched ahead, open and endless, and for now, it was just them. The silence hung between them like something fragile, untouchable. until Jungkook exhaled and turned the wheel, easing the car to the side of the road. The city lights faded in the rearview mirror, replaced by the vast quiet of the open stretch ahead. Without a word, they stepped out, the night air crisp against their skin. Jungkook leaned against the car for a moment, inhaling deeply, grounding himself, but Tae had other plans. With practiced ease, Tae reached for Jungkook's wrist, guiding him onto the bonnet. He pressed down gently, urging him to sit. The metal was cool beneath Jungkook's fingertips, contrasting the heat pooling in his stomach as Tae stepped closer. Then, with slow, calculated intent, Tae placed both hands flat against the bonnet on either side of Jungkook, caging him in, not forcefully, just enough to make the space between them feel impossibly small. Jungkook swallowed, pulse quickening at the weight of Tae's stare. It wasn't playful, not like earlier. It wasn't teasing either. It was deeper, something unspoken unraveling in the way his eyes traced over Jungkook's features. He wasn't touching him, not yet, but the way he hovered so close, the quiet dominance of his presence was enough to make Jungkook dizzy. "You're nervous," Tae observed, his voice low, curling around Jungkook's senses. "I'm not," Jungkook lied, breath catching. Tae's smirk was subtle, knowing. He didn't move back. He didn't press forward. He just stayed there watching, studying until Jungkook felt like he was unraveling under the weight of it. The night stretched around them, the headlights casting long shadows across the empty road, but right now, the only thing Jungkook could feel was the heat between them. And Tani, always Tani, waiting, watching, taking his time. Jungkook's breath hitched as Tae shifted slightly, the barest tilt of his head sending a fresh wave of heat through him. The air was thick, almost suffocating, but not in a way he wanted to escape. Tae still wasn't touching him, but somehow, he was everywhere, his presence sinking into Jungkook's skin, his gaze burning through the fragile space between them. "You're quiet," Tae murmured, voice slow, deliberate. Jungkook swallowed. "You're too close." Tae hummed, seemingly amused, but he didn't move away. Instead, his fingers flexed against the bonnet, gripping the cool metal like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. "I like watching you get nervous," Tae admitted, his tone smooth but edged with something unspoken. "It's rare." Jungkook exhaled shakily. "I'm not nervous." The lie hung between them, naked, daring Tae to call him out. Tae's smirk deepened slow, knowing, his hands pressed down a fraction harder, leaning in just enough for Jungkook to feel his warmth. "Then why," Tae whispered, "is your pulse racing?" Jungkook barely stopped himself from biting his lip. Tae was intoxicating, always had been, but like this, under the hush of night, under the weight of his stare, Jungkook was losing his grip on steady breathing. Jungkook began, but the words refused to come. Tae tilted his head, letting his gaze trace the soft curve of Jungkook's throat, the faint tremor in his jaw. "You look like you want to say something," he murmured, eyes flickering back up. Jungkook's fingers curled against the bonnet, gripping the edge. "I don't think I need to." A beat passed, then slowly, like he was giving Jungkook time to stop him, Tae lifted a hand, sliding it gently over Jungkook's jaw, just the barest touch, just enough to make his breath stutter. The warmth of Tae's palm burned through him, his thumb grazing over the sharp line of his cheekbone. "You don't," Tae finally whispered, voice laced with something thick, something dangerous. Jungkook closed his eyes for half a second, just enough to let the moment settle inside him before he opened them again, meeting Tae's gaze head-on. That was all it took. Tae inhaled sharply just once before his other hand slid closer, his palm pressing flat against the metal beside Jungkook's thigh, the space between them shrinking to something almost unbearable. "You're trembling," Tae murmured, his voice low, teasing but laced with something deeper. "I'm not," Jungkook whispered, though the slight quiver in his voice betrayed him. Tae's lips curved into a slow, knowing smile. "You're terrible at lying, Rue." The nickname, spoken so softly, sent a shiver down Jungkook's spine. Tae leaned in, his breath warm against Jungkook's skin, his gaze unwavering. "You drive me crazy, you know that." Tae's voice was barely above a whisper. Jungkook swallowed hard, his heart pounding so loudly he was sure Tae could hear it. You're not exactly making it easy to think right now. Tae chuckled, the sound low and rich, his fingers brushing against Jungkook's jaw again, tilting his face up slightly. Good, thinking's overrated. Jungkook's eyes fluttered shut for a moment, his breath catching as Tae's thumb grazed over his bottom lip, the touch so light it was almost maddening. When he opened his eyes again, Tae was closer, so close their foreheads nearly touched, his gaze locked on Jungkook's, intense and unrelenting. Tell me to stop, Tae whispered, his voice rough around the edges, his restraint hanging by a thread. Jungkook's lips parted, but no words came. He didn't want to stop. He didn't want Tae to pull away. And Tae seemed to know. The tension between them shifted, no longer sharp but something deeper, something fragile. Jungkook's gaze faltered, dropping to the space between them as his fingers curled against the edge of the bonnet. His voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. I don't want to lose you, Tae. The words hung in the air, raw and unguarded. Tae's breath hitched, his hand stilling against Jungkook's skin. You won't, Tae said, his voice steady, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes, something he couldn't quite name. Jungkook shook his head, his grip tightening on the metal beneath him. You say that, but you're everything, Tae, and sometimes I feel like I'm holding onto something I don't deserve. Tae's chest tightened, the weight of Jungkook's confession settling deep inside him. He leaned in slightly, his hands pressing against the bonnet on either side of Jungkook, his gaze unwavering. You're wrong, Tae murmured. You're the only thing that makes sense to me, the only thing I don't want to let go of. Jungkook's breath stuttered, his heart pounding against his ribs. Then why do I feel like you're slipping away sometimes? Tae exhaled, his gaze softening as he searched Jungkook's face. Because I'm scared too, he admitted, the words quiet but heavy. Scared of how much I need you, scared of what it means to feel this way. Jungkook's eyes widened, his pulse quickening at the vulnerability in Tae's voice. You're scared? Tae nodded, his lips curving into a faint, bittersweet smile. You make me feel things I didn't think I was capable of, and sometimes it's overwhelming, but it's also the only thing that feels real. Jungkook's fingers relaxed, his grip loosening as he reached out, his hand brushing against Tae's wrist. You don't have to be scared, he whispered. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Tae's gaze softened further, his hands shifting slightly as he leaned closer, their foreheads almost touching. You're the only thing I trust, Rue, the only thing I want. Jungkook swallowed, his gaze flickering to Tae's, searching. We're getting married. Tae exhaled a soft laugh, his lips curving, though there was something unreadable in his expression. That we are. That's why I think I've been scared, because it's real, because no matter how much I try to hold on to this, sometimes it feels like a dream. Tae's smirk faded, replaced by something gentler, something reverent. He lifted a hand, trailing his fingers lightly over Jungkook's cheek, his touch so delicate it almost made Jungkook ache. I know what you mean, Tae murmured. Sometimes I catch myself wondering, why is this happening so fast? Why do I need you like this? Jungkook's breath hitched at the confession, something in him unraveling, and Tae chuckled softly, shaking his head. And then I look at you, and it doesn't matter, because whether it's fast or slow, whether it's overwhelming or terrifying, I'd rather take the chaos than spend a single moment without you. Jungkook inhaled sharply, his chest tightening with something thick, something overwhelming. Tae's forehead pressed lightly against his, warm and steady. I'm not going anywhere, Tae whispered, and neither are you. Jungkook let out a shaky breath, his fingers reaching for Tae's arm, holding onto him like he was the only thing keeping him upright. This isn't a dream, Tae continued, his voice lower now. This is real. You, us, and in a few days, it's forever. Jungkook's heart pounded, his fingers curling against Tae's skin. Forever. Tae smiled, a real one, soft and certain, as his fingers traced Jungkook's jaw one last time before settling against the bonnet again, his grip firm, grounding. Forever, Jungkook repeated, the weight of it pressing against his ribs. Tae hummed softly, as if savoring the way the words sounded between them. His gaze traced over Jungkook's feature, before settling on his eyes. That's the plan, he murmured. Jungkook exhaled sharply, searching Tae's face. Do you know what you do to me? Tae whispered, his voice dipping lower, rougher. Every time I try to step back, you pull me in like I have no choice. Jungkook swallowed hard, his pulse hammering. Then don't step back. Tae inhaled, his chest rising sharply. You don't get it, do you? He leaned in slightly, his breath warm against Jungkook's cheek. I'm losing myself in you. Jungkook's fingers curled tighter, his body buzzing with the electricity of Tae's confession. So lose yourself. Tae let out a sharp breath, shaking his head, his fingers tightening on the bonnet. You make it sound so easy. Jungkook tilted his head, the soft glow of the distant street lights flickering in his eyes. It is. Tae chuckled, dark and quiet, his gaze flickering between Jungkook's lips and his eyes. God, you drive me insane. Jungkook's breath shuddered. Then let me fix it. Tae studied him, a war playing out behind his eyes, wanting to fight it, knowing he wouldn't. Then, slowly, deliberately, his fingers lifted, tracing the curvy line of Jungkook's lips, grazing over his chin, his touch featherlight but scorching. Jungkook inhaled sharply, his grip slipping, his chest tightening as Tae's fingers ghosted over his collarbone. This, Tae murmured, voice nothing but heat. This is why I can't think straight around you. Jungkook, barely breathing now, whispered, then don't think. Tae smirked, wild, dangerous, intoxicating. Oh Rue, that's the problem, he murmured, dipping even closer, his lips hovering just above Jungkook's skin. You're all I do think about, every second, every moment. It's like you've taken over everything. Tae's jaw tightened, his chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. You're not just everything to me, you're all of me, and that's terrifying. Jungkook's pulse was erratic, his breath uneven as he slid off the bonnet, feet planting firmly on the ground. The space between them was agonizingly small, but still, not close enough, not for what he needed, not for what he was terrified of losing. He didn't hesitate this time. He stepped forward, his arms wrapping around Tae's waist, his grip firm, desperate, like he was trying to memorize the shape of him. Tae stiffened for only half a second before exhaling sharply, his chest rising against Jungkook's. Then his arms were around Jungkook too, holding him tight, pressing them together in a way that felt irrevocable. Hug wasn't soft, it was fierce, raw, laced with something more dangerous than words. I don't care how terrifying this is, Jungkook murmured, his fingers curling into the fabric of Tae's shirt. I just need you. Tae exhaled against Jungkook's shoulder, his grip tightening, his fingers pressing into Jungkook's back like he was afraid to let go. You have me, Tae whispered. Jungkook squeezed his eyes shut, burying himself deeper into the warmth of Tae's body. Then promise me, he breathed, promise me you'll never let go. Tae's fingers curled harder against Jungkook's back, his lips brushing against the side of his head. Then he pulled back just slightly, enough to search Jungkook's face, his gaze flickering between his eyes and the curve of his lips. You're all I have, he whispered, you're all I want. After the whirlwind of a night filled with laughter, music, and the serene drive under a blanket of stars, Jungkook and Taehyung stumbled into their home. They were exhausted, especially for Taehyung, worn down by the endless office hours. He barely made it to the bed before sleep claimed him, his body curling into the soft sheets. Jungkook, however, found himself drawn to the quiet beauty of Taehyung's sleeping form, his fingers instinctively reaching to tame the unruly strands of hair that framed it. Each gentle caress became a silent ode to the man before him, a quiet admiration, an intimacy that required no words. A small movement stirred beneath him, and Taehyung's eyes fluttered open, half-lidded and hazy with sleep. He reached for Jungkook's hand, his fingers warm and gentle as they wrapped around his wrist. Rue, sleep now, Taehyung whispered, his voice barely audible but laced with affection. Jungkook froze, his lips parting slightly. "You woke up?" he murmured, his tone a mixture of surprise and quiet amusement. Taehyung's lips curved into the faintest smile. "If you keep touching me like that, how can I sleep, baby?" he teased softly, his gaze holding a spark of playful intimacy. Jungkook chuckled, his smile growing as his fingers resumed their soft dance through Taehyung's hair. Gradually, his hand fell away, succumbing to the weight of his own fatigue. Morning light filtered softly through the curtains, brushing against Jungkook, who sat on the couch, clad in his crisp white shirt and dark slacks. The faint hum of his phone as he scrolled through emails was the only sound, his mind half occupied between the screen and the breakfast waiting on the table. "Rue!" The voice startled him. Jungkook turned, his breath catching as he saw Taehyung emerging from the room, his hair damp, droplets trailing down the curve of his neck and over his bare chest. The tailored pants he wore hugged his form perfectly, accentuating his effortless elegance. Jungkook's gaze lingered for a heartbeat longer than it should have. "Not ready for the office?" Jungkook asked casually, though a hint of fondness colored his tone. Taehyung didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked closer until he was standing right in front of Jungkook. Without a word, he settled himself onto Jungkook's lap, his legs draped comfortably over either side, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The proximity sent a faint thrill through the air. Jungkook raised a brow, a soft smile tugging at his lips. His hand instinctively rose to Taehyung's wet hair, his fingers threading through the damp strands. He let the motion linger, his voice dropping to a gentle murmur. "What's this about, Tae? Take off your shirt," Taehyung said, his tone calm but laced with something that made Jungkook's stomach flip. Jungkook blinked, caught off guard. "Why?" Taehyung's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "I want to wear it to the office." Jungkook stared at him, his mind racing. "What, Tae? I already wore it. That's exactly why I want it," Taehyung interrupted, his fingers already working on the buttons of Jungkook's shirt. Jungkook froze, his breath hitching as Taehyung's fingers brushed against his skin, unhurried but purposeful. The shirt yielded to his touch, parting slowly, revealing smooth skin beneath. He slid the shirt off Jungkook's shoulders, and Jungkook sat there, stunned, as Taehyung held it up, inspecting it like it was something precious. "Tae," Jungkook started, his voice faltering. "I don't understand. I sweated in it. You won't understand," Taehyung murmured, bringing the shirt close to his face. He inhaled deeply, his eyes fluttering shut for a moment. "I want to feel you all day. This scent of yours." His voice trailed off. Jungkook's breath caught as Taehyung opened his eyes, the intensity in them making his knees weak. "I love it," Taehyung said simply, his lips curving into a cheeky smile as he slipped the shirt on, the fabric clinging to his frame in a way that made Jungkook's heart race. Jungkook stood there, dumbfounded, as Taehyung adjusted the cuffs. "Why do you always do this?" Jungkook finally managed, his voice barely above a whisper. Taehyung looked up, his gaze locking onto Jungkook's. "Do what?" "Make me feel like this," Jungkook admitted, his voice trembling. Taehyung's smile softened, his eyes warm but teasing. "Because I can't help it, Rue." Jungkook's chest tightened, his heart pounding as Taehyung leaned closer, his fingers brushing against Jungkook's jaw. "And when I walk into that office," Taehyung murmured, his voice low, "I want to carry you with me, every second, every breath, because you're the only thing that keeps me steady. I want to feel you all day, while I work, while I talk, even when I shake hands with people who will never understand what you do to me." Jungkook opened his mouth, but no words came. Taehyung just smirked, leaning forward again, closing the space between them. "You're in my veins, Rue," he whispered, "and I want to carry that with me." Jungkook shivered, his fingers twitching at his sides, helpless against the way Taehyung always knew how to leave him utterly wrecked. Before Jungkook could gather a response, Taehyung leaned in, lips brushing against the corner of Jungkook's mouth, barely there but enough to send his pulse into chaos. He finally slid off Jungkook's lap and disappeared into the bedroom, leaving Jungkook sitting there, still processing. Jungkook was still standing there, shirtless, his mind spinning from the way Taehyung had just walked out wearing his shirt like it was the most natural thing in the world. But before he could even process it, Taehyung was back. This time, he held a t-shirt in one hand, his other hand casually adjusting the cuff of Jungkook's shirt now draped over his frame. Without a word, Taehyung tossed the t-shirt at Jungkook, the fabric landing squarely against his chest. "Don't provoke me with those abs this early, Rue." Jungkook chuckled, shaking his head as he slipped the t-shirt on. "You're impossible, Tae." Taehyung didn't respond, already moving around the room with practiced ease, grabbing his watch, his phone, and a sleek leather bag. Jungkook watched him, the way he moved with quiet confidence, the way the morning light seemed to follow him. "Tae," Jungkook said, breaking the silence, "your new personal staff is Serafina. I chose her." Taehyung paused, glancing at him with a raised brow. "Yeah, Fiona mentioned it. How's she?" Jungkook smirked, leaning against the edge of the couch. "You'll see." Taehyung tilted his head slightly, his lips curving into a faint smile. "Fair enough." He stepped closer, his movements unhurried, deliberate, until he was standing right in front of Jungkook. For a moment, he just looked at him, his gaze soft but intense, like he was memorizing every detail. Then, without warning, Taehyung leaned in, his lips brushing against Jungkook's in a kiss that was both gentle and firm. Jungkook's breath caught, his hands instinctively reaching for Taehyung's waist, holding him there as the kiss deepened, slow and unhurried, yet filled with something that made his chest ache. When Taehyung finally pulled back, his forehead rested lightly against Jungkook's, his breath warm against his skin. "Don't miss me too much," he murmured, his voice soft but teasing. Jungkook chuckled, his fingers tightening slightly against Taehyung's waist. "You're the one wearing my shirt. Don't forget who you're carrying with you all day." Taehyung smirked, his eyes flickering with something unreadable. "How could I?" And with that, he stepped back, grabbing his bag and heading for the door, leaving Jungkook standing there, his heart racing, his chest warm with the lingering weight of Taehyung's kiss. The office air was crisp, filled with quiet admiration as Taehyung stepped through the entrance, his tailored frame and composed presence effortlessly commanding the space. Heads turned instinctively, whispers following in his wake. But he was used to it, it came with the weight of his name. As he reached his floor, his gaze fell on the woman standing near his office, poised and professional. "Good morning, sir," Serafina greeted with a polite smile. Taehyung lifted an eyebrow slightly, slowing his pace. "Serafina?" She nodded once, her posture straight, unwavering. "The one Rue picked for me," Taehyung murmured, more to himself than to her. Before Serafina could respond, Fiona approached with a clipboard in hand. "Sir," Fiona greeted smoothly. "Serafina has already had an orientation session with me. She's prepared to assume her responsibilities immediately." Taehyung turned back to the new assistant, intrigued. "Is that so?" Serafina met his gaze without hesitation. "Yes, sir. I've been thoroughly briefed and ready to assist." Impressed by her composure, Taehyung nodded, expression cool but approving. "All right then." He strode toward his office, Serafina falling in step behind him, effortlessly keeping pace. Once inside, Taehyung unbuttoned his blazer, about to remove it when she quickly set down her bag and stepped forward. Without missing a beat, she slipped it from his shoulders and walked to the cupboard, hanging it neatly without needing instruction. He observed her efficiency with quiet amusement before settling into his chair, opening his laptop. Serafina, already attuned to his needs, filled a glass of water and placed it before him. Not a second later, she moved toward the pantry, selecting an arrangement of healthy snacks and nuts, placing them elegantly in front of him in a refined basket. Taehyung glanced up, genuinely intrigued. "What's this?" Serafina straightened. "Jungkook briefed me." Taehyung's lips twitched, cutting her off. "Rue?" He leaned back slightly, processing the thought before exhaling a quiet chuckle. Oh, I see. Serafina hesitated, noticing the amused glint in his eyes. Taehyung smirked slightly, his tone lighter now. So, do you know who Jungkook is to me? Serafina blinked, considering the question. Your friend, I assume? Taehyung hummed, his expression unreadable as he drummed his fingers lightly against his desk. Friend, he repeated the word, testing how it sounded in the air. Serafina shifted slightly, sensing something unspoken in his tone, but Taehyung didn't clarify. He only offered her a small knowing smile before returning his attention to his laptop, leaving the question lingering between them like something quietly unresolved.